Fire, you won't believe what happened when my HOA decided to send biker thugs to intimidate my wife. But let me tell you this, 3 minutes later, the same men were on their knees begging me to stop. And if you love shocking real-life stories packed with twists, lessons, and edge-of-your-seat suspense, then hit that subscribe button right now, because what you're about to hear will change the way you look at fear, intimidation, and the quiet strength a man can hide beneath a calm exterior. Because it all started one late summer afternoon when my wife and I were sitting on the porch of our quiet suburban home, enjoying lemonade and the warm breeze, when a black convoy of roaring motorcycles tore through the street like a swarm of wasps, their leather jackets flashing skulls and flames. And though I had always known my HOA was petty, strict, and even vindictive at times, I never expected they'd escalate their nonsense into something so outrageous. But that's exactly what happened when the HOA president, a smug little man named Richard with too much power and not enough sense, decided my refusal to bow down over a fence height violation was worth teaching me and my wife a lesson. So instead of another fine letter or a nasty note on the door, this time he called in a biker gang he thought would rattle us. But here's what he didn't know. I wasn't the kind of man who backed down, and I wasn't the kind of man who let anyone, not even a gang of leather-clad tough guys, scare my wife. Because my wife had been through too much in her life already, and when I saw her tense up at the sound of those engines, something inside me snapped, not in anger but in a cold, calculated way, the way a soldier snaps into focus before a mission. Because you see, years ago I had lived a different life, one that no one in my neighborhood suspected, not even the smug HOA board that thought of me as just another quiet homeowner with a well-kept lawn. But in reality, I had been trained in things these bikers couldn't even imagine. And though I had retired from that world and sworn never to revisit it, I knew that if they pushed me, I could turn back into the man I once was in an instant. And that instant was about to arrive as the bikes skidded to a halt in front of my driveway, their engines growling like beasts, their riders dismounting one by one, boots hitting the asphalt with the weight of arrogance, chains clinking, tattoos glaring in the sun, and one of them, a mountain of a man with a beard like steel wool, spat on my driveway and barked out, "You the guy who thinks he's too good to follow rules?" And I didn't answer, not because I was afraid but because silence is sometimes more powerful than words, and in that silence, I stood up slowly, feeling my wife's hand clutch my arm, trembling not because she doubted me but because she knew what I was about to do, and I whispered to her, "Go inside and lock the door," and though she hesitated, she obeyed, because she trusted me, and as soon as the screen door clicked shut behind her, I stepped forward, my eyes scanning each biker, reading them the way I used to read men in enemy territory, noting their posture, their weapons, their tells, the way the leader's left hand twitched near his belt where a knife probably rested, the way the youngest one tried to puff out his chest but couldn't hide the tremor in his shoulders, and then, before they could speak again, I said quietly, "You have 3 minutes to leave this street, or I will make you regret stepping foot here," and they laughed, loud and mocking, as if I had just told the funniest joke of the year. But laughter can be the greatest weakness, because while they were busy ridiculing me, I moved, not wildly, not recklessly, but with precision, grabbing the wrist of the nearest biker who reached toward me, twisting it so fast and so hard he dropped his chain with a cry, and before the others could react, I had already shifted, striking the bearded leader's knee with a sharp kick that sent him crumpling down, roaring in pain, and the others froze for a split second, realizing too late that they weren't dealing with an ordinary suburban husband. They were dealing with someone who had been trained to end fights before they even began, and in less than a minute 2 more were on the ground, groaning, while the rest circled in confusion, their bravado evaporating, and I could feel the timer in my head counting down, not for me but for them, because I had told them 3 minutes, and I meant it, and by the time those 3 minutes passed, the once cocky bikers were on their knees, hands raised, begging me to stop, their tough guy masks shattered, their voices cracking with desperation, promising they'd never come back, never touch my wife, never bother me again. And I looked down at them, breathing steady, heart calm, because for me this wasn't rage, it was simply control, the kind of control most men never learn, the kind that scares bullies more than any punch. And I told them, "Go back to Richard, tell him what happened here, and if he ever tries this again, I won't stop where I stopped today." And they nodded frantically, scrambling back to their bikes, helping their limping leader mount up, and as they roared away, far less confident than they had arrived, my wife stepped back onto the porch, eyes wide with a mix of fear and pride, and she whispered, "You didn't have to." But I cut her off, saying, "Yes, I did, because nobody scares you, not while I'm here," and she hugged me tighter than she ever had before, and though the street soon returned to its quiet normality, word spread fast, because in neighborhoods like ours, nothing stays secret, and within hours the HOA board was buzzing, whispers flying, Richard himself avoiding me like the plague, suddenly polite in his emails, suddenly cautious in his wording, because bullies, whether in suits or leather jackets, all crumble when they face someone unafraid. But the story didn't end there, because a week later, while my wife and I were once again on the porch, Richard himself showed up, not with his usual arrogance but with a pale face and shaking hands, claiming he never meant for things to go so far, that he only wanted to scare us a little, that the bikers weren't supposed to actually confront me, and I let him ramble, let him sweat, until finally I leaned forward and said, "You'll leave us alone, permanently, or you'll end up just like them," begging me to stop, and the look in his eyes told me he understood, and from that day forward, no more letters, no more fines, no more harassment ever came from the HOA, because the truth is, fear only works on those who don't know their own strength, and when you stand tall, when you refuse to let anyone intimidate you, the entire game changes, and that's why I tell you this story now, because bullies can wear many faces, a smug neighbor, a leather-clad biker, even an official title like HOA president, but in the end, they all crumble the same way, and if you stand your ground, if you protect what matters, they'll end up exactly where those bikers were. On their knees, begging you to stop.